and I haven't heard back from him.
Yeah, and it's unfortunately there's a lot of vendors, in our world and all of these like peripheral worlds that it's the same way. I was just talking about Engel. Engel's products are in such high demand, but for whatever reason, they're not putting a focus on producing the parts for our hobby anymore. I assume they're focusing on the aircraft side of their business or whatever more lucrative.
Oh, I didn't even know they do aircraft. I've never looked at any of their products. So
yeah. So it's all the cornerstone vendors are going away, and if they're not going away, they're kind of mothballing a little bit. Like take a look at DeBoer. He manufactured a number of really desirable kits, but my last dealings with him, it was like pulling teeth to convince him, to beg him to take my money to sell kits. It's like, well, we'll get around to it, and it's kind of hot out today, probably won't be in the shop for a week or two. And
yeah.
And to be honest, the owners of all of these businesses are like in their 70s or 80s, and they're not going to be with us for forever. Yeah. I don't know if they've got their what do you call it, the succession plan in place for the business, or if it'll just evaporate when they go away.
Right. You have a shadow going right down the middle of your face.
It's my Two-Face impression. It's that time of day. It like shines right through. See, if I go in the dark, you can't see me. I'm like Batman.
Yeah, true.
How you doing, Ed?
Oh, getting ready.
Getting ready.
Getting ready.
Jason and I were running around like crazy today, trying to wrap everything up, because I leave tomorrow to go to Florida. My wife booked us tickets to go back, and she had to go for business, and so I got looped into coming. I don't get back until Monday night, which means I've got Tuesday, and then that's it. We start driving on Wednesday.
I'm like, I have checklists for everything.
Mm-hmm.
I have checklists, to pack the RV. I got checklists to pack the subs to pack in the RV. I got checklists for all the stuff to bring, and they're nested in each other. I'm like, I'm going through this complete list of just because I hate what you're going to go through. You're going to have Tuesday, right? And it's always a scramble, and so I try and get it done. It's actually date coded 3 days prior to leaving. Fill the truck with gas, stuff like that. Go to the ATM, get all that raffle money 2 days prior to leaving. Just so I can schedule out, so I'm not stressed. But you get stressed anyway.
And then this year, it's not just raffle stuff. We got that sub swap table too. There's going to be stuff for sale.
Yes. I mean, basically, we're all ready to go. So, have you formulated exactly what you're doing, how you're getting there yet, or is the plane back in the picture?
The plane's not back in the picture yet. I haven't heard anything, so we're still driving. A lot of it depends on what time we get away on Wednesday. Yeah. Between picking up the vehicle, we have to drive from like the Woodlands to the international airport, and then back to the Woodlands to pick up everything and then take off. So, well, I didn't want to book a hotel just because we could be like super caffeinated and be like, yeah, we'll do 10 hours today or 12 hours today, or we could be like, this sucks. 4 hours in, it's time to crash. I don't know. We'll play it by ear.
Yeah. The Carmel trip went surprisingly, being my first long distance haul. It was 2,000 miles round trip with the Airstream, but it went surprisingly smooth. you know, proper planning prevents piss poor performance, you know.
Mm-hmm.
It did goes. And what I learned is now banking on to this trip, you know.
Yep. Yeah, I'll bet.
You know, we're meeting up with Vaughn at 4 p.m. because, you know, that's kind of thing. He's the gating factor of getting on the road. And now I think, and I was hoping Steve O'Connell shows up because now all of a sudden he's looking at caravan. So it may be 3 or 4 vehicles going.
Well, now I'm going to feel like I'm being left out.
and have you've seen the pictures of this monster typhoon on a trailer that I'm going to be following? I mean, guys, he's got this huge 25-foot trailer with a Russian typhoon sitting on it, going through the deep south of America. I'm like a little nervous. You know?
Hey, speak of the devil, there's Steve.
Yeah. But
so here's a question for you, since we're officially 2 minutes into the dive-tribe. For those people who are here right now, and I know the answer to some of these, but what is your radius from home for a submarine event? How far would you drive to attend like an RC submarine get together, or does it depend on the get together, and what's your criteria?
Well, I'm driving down to Georgia, of course, and I go to Groton all the time when we have that event. I haven't been out to Indiana. And there's no other events that I know of except for those 2 that I attend. So
remind everybody where you're out of, Ken, so they have
I am out of Central New Jersey.
Okay.
For me, speaking, it's because the event is usually a Friday, Saturday, Sunday thing, you know, it's not the middle of the week. So I'm good with 2 travel days before and after. So actually, Carmel was say 1,000 miles one way. I'm good with that. I'd like to limit to an 8-hour drive per day, you know, because in my head, I think 8 hours equals 1 normal work day.
Yeah.
Drive before, you know, take breaks and like a work day. So you shouldn't get any more fatigued than that. So that's it. So 16-hour drive for me.
Gotcha.
About 1,000 miles.
Well, Dave, I go from just north of Tampa, Florida to Rocky Mount, North Carolina for the fun run they have up there in October. That's towing a trailer up there too. That's about 12 hours drive each way.
There you go. And you do that in one day?
Yep. I leave my home about 2:30 in the morning, get there about 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
Oh, wow. That's hardcore. Like I'm a morning person, but that's early.
Yeah. That's the way I go through Gainesville and Jacksonville.
Oh, yeah. You want to miss the traffic.
Yeah, I get through Gainesville, it's dead quiet when I go through there, and then when I get to Jacksonville, it's just like they're just waking up. So George, go ahead.
I was just going to say, and David, like you're up in the Northeast too, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm up in Pennsylvania. It's a 10.5-hour drive.
There you go.
Georgia.
It seems so much further for me for whatever reason. It's 13 hours and 15 minutes of drive time is what Google is telling me. So we'll see if we can knock a few minutes off of that time or not. I know it was 11 from Naples up there when I drove in 2020.
Yeah, I think from my location to Georgia, for me, is about 7.5 hours.
No, that's not bad at all. Yeesh.
No, so I plan to make it next year there.
Awesome.
For us, we try and add something in, like this time around, we're leaving on Tuesday, get down to Luray, and we're going to go to Luray Caverns, and then leave the next day to get down to Chattanooga. And so we usually try and throw something else in there at the same time.
Yeah, sure. Why wouldn't you? For sure. If you have
Yeah.
the time.
Yeah.
Then there's Jason. Come on, man. You have the opportunity to be like the furthest out at the event, but you
I
just
know. Well, I was really planning on coming to Subfest this year, and I would certainly drive 1,000 miles for an event like that. But for me, it's something like 2,800 miles. So the only way I could justify it, the cost and everything of doing it, was if I could find some way to make money on the way or something. So I had a deal going where I was going to drop off one car and pick up another one in Tennessee, and the Tennessee deal fell apart. So it was a $25,000 car, and the deal between the buyer and the seller, I was just going to be the delivery guy.
Mm-hmm.
So that was kind of my hope, was to get that to come together in time, and they're still working on it, but it doesn't look like it's going to happen.
Yeah, well, we're down to the wire now, aren't we?
It's just the flying out there is pretty expensive, plus car rental and everything. We talked about this on the phone. It adds up to about 2,500, $3,000 for a weekend, with the airfare, car rental, hotel, and driving out there is probably more than that, I would think, for fuel to get there and back. The problem with flying is you can't bring very much.
Yeah, that is absolutely the issue. You bet.
How about Lake Tahoe?
How about what?
I think he said he wants you to go out to Lake Tahoe.
Oh, Lake Tahoe. Yeah, I would definitely do that. That's not terribly far.
What I was thinking of doing was, as I get involved with my own boat, is eventually maybe asking if you guys wanted to have a West Coast on Lake Tahoe, fly into Reno, and then I've got covered trailers for my military vehicles to pick things up and to take them to the lake, and kind of bribe the wives into coming along with it so that you can get more lake time.
That sounds good. Lake Tahoe for me is probably 800-mile drive. So it's doable.
I would consider, one of the things that made me happy about coming to a central state, well, sort of south central, was I can go either way. I think maybe not as equally to the West Coast. It's about 20 hours to San Diego. I think I have a 20-hour ride, because I'm mapping this all out, because I do plan on doing this. I mean, and I'm going to say right now, Bob, you need to make a most devoted award for the farthest traveler to Subfest. Because I'll tell you right now, Mike Dory did it for how many years, from San Diego to Groton, Connecticut, in an RV. And that's impressive. If he can do that, I can at least try to drive half the distance.
Well, where's Tom out of?
Tom
Shelton.
Yeah. Las Vegas. I plan to go up there and it is back in the woods.
Yeah, that's right. Because he drove out last year to Subfest. That was a hike.
Yes.
We've
Well,
had,
he
we've
would
had
get that
Vegas,
award.
Utah. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Bob, who's not here with us, Schroeder, he's coming from Utah. His boat is coming via Dallas to Utah. It's kind of, he's going to be in Dallas, and then he's driving out next week.
You should have got a bigger trailer, Ed, to haul all of these boats that people are getting you to courier around for them.
Sure, and then I could take what I charge them for to pay the loan on the trailer. Right?
I think
Steve
that's valid.
O'Connell. What's Steve O'Connell doing for his? Have you nailed down your trip yet?
Nailed down what? Oh, trip. Right now I'm leaving north of Dallas Wednesday morning, and I'll stay about halfway. It's about a 800-mile drive. So I'm going to split it in half and come in Thursday noonish afternoon.
Yeah, that's our plan too. I think we were thinking we'd probably end up there like noonish.
Yeah, I might not be quite that early, but I was thinking about 2. I got about 2 6-hour days, and I'm not bringing my trailer. I'm just driving the Tahoe. So
There you go.
I haven't bought my ticket yet, but Bob, how many people you have signed up?
We have, I think 23 skippers signed up. And then for attendees, we've got an additional 12 people pre-registered. So I have a hunch there's going to be a lot of extras. I did reach out to the local like news agencies, and I put little ads out and stuff, and I've got road signs and all sorts of stuff too. So I'm hoping we can pull some riffraff in from the streets as well.
it sounded like, Bob, you sound like you've switched to driving from flying.
Yep, the left mag let loose on my plane again. Exact same problem.
Oh.
Yeah,
Well, you got another one. There's 2, right?
I know. Who needs 2? Yeah, no, it's it was borderline actually to begin with. Jason and I, we have a pile of stuff sitting by the front door of our shop.
I saw it. Yeah,
and it was getting, well, that was
Bigger.
nothing. No, that was the beginning of the pile, and it was getting bigger and bigger, and we're like, oh boy, this is kind of bursting at the seams. And then I talked to a couple of people there, and I'm trying to work deals on their boats, and one of them's pretty big, so I'm like, this way we rented a minivan, so I've hauled a lot of boats in a minivan before. I know I can haul a lot of boats back.
but don't you have to fill the front seat with the back seat? So where's Jason going to sit?
Well, there is a roof rack. We got bungee cords, and yeah, it'll be fine.
Yeah, just strap me to the roof. We'll go for there.
Yeah, don't word for the wise. If you do rent a minivan, don't get the Honda Odyssey that doesn't have the stowaway seats.
Just put a sign on your minivan, don't mind a kid on the roof.
Yeah, exactly. Well, the thing I like about it is it's comfortable to drive, and it'll get us probably an average of like 23 to 25 miles to the gallon. So I'll take it. That's a lot better than my plane gets.
That's better than I get with the Expedition towing a trailer at 11 miles to the gallon.
Yeah, there you go. What mileage did you get, Ed? I'm sure you have it calculated to the second decimal place.
11.7 with the 4,000 pound Airstream Base Camp 20X pulled by a 150 3.5 6-cylinder.
Oh, well, there you go.
Yeah, it's 11.7. I'm not arguing with that at all.
Yeah,
It was much better than
that is what
thought.
I get in my airplane. For anybody that cares, although I am not absolutely sure, that might be nautical miles to the gallon. I think it is. So it's actually 15% more than that.
Probably.
But you're able to fly straight, not in circles and curves and stuff.
Well, unless it's cloudy. I picked Renee up from Tennessee, and what took me 4 hours to get there took us 5.5 to get back. So mostly because she has a small bladder, and there was a forced landing for washroom break.
That's the only reason I can't like private airplanes. You can't stop and go to the bathroom very easily.
No, you can't. We have a little jar with a lid on it.
Yes, I imagine so, but I bet you want to land first before you have to use that facility.
Well, we've actually got more people here than I thought. Now, I had picked out a topic because I really did want to, sort of lay out for people so that they can think in advance and think of questions and that kind of thing. And the one that kind of popped into my head, and I get questions about this all the time. How do you guys, when you build your boats, size your motors and choose your propellers? Because it's one of the biggest questions that I get asked all the time is what motor should I put in it, and what kind of propeller should I put on it? So I have thoughts, but I wanted to get your input first before we.
I think the propeller should be scaled to whatever the model is, assuming it's a scale model. And the motor is sort of whatever suited to the propeller size with whatever gear ratio, if it's geared down.
Mhm.
Okay, my thought is, I stick to 12-volt systems. So I know I'm always choosing a 12-volt motor. Okay, so getting that aside, I go with the largest motor I can fit in the space, so the motor doesn't have to work as hard. Then I go by Dave's, what he said with that German rule of thumb. So being it, as long as I know the propeller will not be the scale propeller, okay, like Jason was just saying, so I'll still go with the largest motor possible that I could fit in the dry space. But, or I do know at least that the scale of the prop or the side diameter prop is not larger than the motor. I don't have to worry about gear reduction. Okay, so in the case of the skipjack, you know, my famous skipjack, it was once powered by a WTC 3.5, which had a 600 ball bearing motor, routing a 600, I think, ball bearing. Now it's 3-to-1 gear reduction because it's swinging a 3 3/4 inch 7-bladed prop. Okay, now it's direct drive because I have that big old Redmond 12-volt blower motor, which is the same diameter. And like I said, you guys know the performance of the boat. It's at 1 amp at cruising speed, 0.9 to 1 amp at cruising speed.
Mhm. Any other thoughts or experience from people building your boats?
I have only 2 boats, and both of them I had the sub drivers from David, and it came with the motors, and the propellers were part of the fittings kit, so I just used what I got there.
Ditto on what Ken said.
Mhm. So I've done a few things in the past. The first experience that I had was scratch building my big 66-inch Nautilus, and that's swinging a 3 3/4 inch diameter propeller as well. By accident, I stumbled on a motor that I absolutely fell in love with. There's a company in Canada called Princess Auto. I don't know if you guys are familiar with it or not. Rick Teskey put me on to the pumps that he used for his flying sub. Those are sold by Princess Auto, but they don't sell into the US, unfortunately. So I had to route it through my parents' address to get those pumps. But at any rate, the motor that I stumbled on was actually a heater blower motor from a vehicle, from a car. So it's about like 2.5 maybe, or 2 3/4 inch in diameter, 3 inches long. Had I'm gonna say like a 1/4 inch shaft. But the cool thing about this, and this makes sense when you think about it, that they're designed to spin those big blower fans, right? They're like those circular drum fans in a car that are like 6 inches in diameter, and so they're super torquey. But the other thing about them, they've got typically between 10 and 12 poles, which makes them pretty efficient. And they've also got internal noise suppression. So you know how we solder on those capacitors on the outside to eliminate the RF noise? That's all internal to these motors. And I think I got that motor for like $5 or something, because it was all surplus stuff at this store. So I was told sort of the rule of thumb is you can get away with direct drive in a brushed motor if the can size is roughly equal to or greater than the diameter of your propeller. So that's kind of like a kind of rule of thumb for that. But what I'm getting at is don't limit your thoughts to like hobby grade stuff. There's tons of things out there, and especially the automotive industry, because there's electric motors and solenoid valves and actuators and switches and like anything you can think of if you check like eBay and stuff, you can get it for nickels on the dollar. So just kind of keep that in the back of your mind. You're not limited to, you know, like Graupner and, you know, all of these other suppliers to the hobby industry. Surplus in the automotive industry is a really, really good one as well. RPMs, anybody familiar with how fast their boats are spinning their props at? Doesn't matter if you've built it or if you bought it, you should roughly know how quick they're spinning. No? Big boats, probably you want to shoot for something around maybe like 3,000 RPM. The smaller boats, you can probably get away with like 4,000 or 5,000 RPM. So again, from a selection perspective, you don't want to buy, you know, like a 20,000 RPM motor. It'll spin the prop, but it'll work really, really hard to do it because it's like trying to pedal in 6th gear, you know, on a 6-speed bike. It's not super excited about doing that kind of thing. So that's the RPM range that you want, and you need that for efficiency for the propeller to move the boat. Now you could get a 20,000 RPM motor, but you'd have to gear it down either with a gearbox or a belt drive, right, to drop the RPMs down to where you would want them from. And I've done both too, and they work really, really well. Obviously, like Ed had said, you know, Dave Merriman built the WTC 3.5s with a geared, because those are 10,000 RPM brushed motors that he was using. He was using that 3-to-1 gearbox to knock it down to something closer to 4,000 RPM at max, or 3,500 RPM at max throttle. But you know me, I'm a big, you know, subscriber to the KISS principle. You know, if you've got a motor and a drive shaft, that's simple. If you've got a motor and a gearbox and a drive shaft, that becomes more complicated. So the fewer parts you have, the more reliable your drivetrain is going to be, which isn't to say we're, you know, it's like 10 times more likely to break down. You know, it's just a certain small percentage more likely, but just kind of keep that in mind if you're ever working out your own drivetrain in your submarine, or if you want to swap out your motor. If the motor dies in your boat and you want to step out of your comfort zone instead of replacing with exactly what it was, you know, look and see what else is out there.
Well, can't you use the endpoints on your radio?
Well, I mean, you could, but it's, you know, you know, like an endpoint on the radio, to go back to my analogy, you're riding your 6-speed bike up a hill, you're still pedaling in 6th gear. It's just, it's stopping you at, you know, the top end. So it's not going to have the torque that you would want. Our boats love torque because they're large, they're moving through a fairly dense medium. That is probably more important. So if you're going too fast, then yeah, absolutely. And I do that with my brushed motors on my cylinders, because the best motors that I found happen to be 750 kilovolts, which means at full 12 volts, you're spinning, you know, like 9,000 RPM or something like that. So you do want to limit those, but brushless motors are a little different than brushed motors. They work a little differently. So the answer is yes, you can, but it's not ideal. You want to have a properly paired, you know, drivetrain.
If you do not have the proper motor, what about your issues in your dive cylinders?
Sorry, you broke up there. What was that?
What about if you don't have the right pitched prop, right pitched motor, and it's working too hard, you're going to start to have heat issues inside your cylinder, aren't you?
Correct. Yeah, exactly. There'll be a heat buildup inside. If Ed was here, he'd be able to tell you, because actually he's got a heat sensor as part of his fancy radio setup, and so he can actually measure the ambient temperature inside his watertight cylinder before, during, and after a run. And it's, it's not only the motor that puts out heat, but potentially the electronic speed controller as well. So yeah, you would have to watch that as well. The especially running the small motors, I see this a lot in like the little 2-inch watertight cylinders that we used to run in like the German Type 7, the 72nd Revell kits and that kind of thing. They're just those little tiny can motors nestled right tight against each other. They're like whatever, just a little less than an inch in diameter. For throttle happy individuals, when you get that thing up out of the lake, those motors will be hot, like hot. So yeah, you absolutely need to think about that. If they're running that hot, then they're not the proper motor. They shouldn't be heating up that much.
Are those motors gear reduction or just direct?
Those are direct. Yeah.
Also, Bob, you got that, stop thinking any kind of tightness on the shaft, any kind of drag on the shaft. If it's not loose enough, that's going to get your motor to get hotter and draw more amps as well.
Yep. Exactly. And back to it again. You may get a motor that'll spin your prop just fine, and maybe it's big enough that it's not gonna fight to do it, but it could suck a massive amount of amperage to do it. So if you're getting 30-minute run times, that's probably a good indication that either your battery is undersized or you've got the wrong drivetrain.
What about material of the prop versus the motor? Like for instance, when I had C-rays, and you could cavitate your props if you had a lot of horsepower and actually change the pitch of the props. And if you were running a vinyl prop, would you have to compensate for that with the motor? That the prop may flatten out?
Well, yeah, it may. Typically in our boats, though, the propellers are going to be, like cast bronze kind of thing, or brass. And so they're going to be, especially in the diameters that we're talking about, they're going to be exceptionally rigid. When your propeller is only 7/8 of an inch in diameter, those blades aren't going to flex very much. The cross section is pretty massive when compared against the surface area of the propeller. Did I lose you guys? Oh, everybody's frozen. Oh, there you're back again. That's freaked me out. Okay, sorry.
Plastic props reflects the most.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, there's a number of plastic props out there, like the ARC model kit, for example, comes with the nylon plastic propellers, but they're only 3/4 or, well, maybe 7/8 of an inch in diameter. And it's not the kind of boat that you're going to get up on plane, right? So they're not going to spin probably fast enough to worry about the physical characteristics. Most people, I should say all people, who upgrade from the nylon props to the brass props do it simply for aesthetics. You get that shiny metal look versus a painted, gold plastic propeller. Speaking of cavitation, and what you were talking about earlier is true cavitation, but for those of you who are not in the know, if you've seen an RC submarine, blowing air out of the propeller, that's not cavitation. Okay, I have never seen an RC submarine cavitate before. Cavitation occurs when there's a massive pressure differential that causes vapor bubbles to form in a very loud and somewhat explosive manner in the low pressure areas behind a propeller. What we see in our application is simply the propeller, when it's close to the surface, pulling air through a vortex into the propellers. And if you've ever had the opportunity, if you've run a boat, you've done it, I'm sure. You'll be running along and then it pulls air and all of a sudden your speed drops in by like 70% and it just makes a lot of noise and kicks up some foam. It's just because the air is less dense than water. It can't move as efficiently. So we are not cavitating is what I'm getting at. Don't make that mistake. Don't tell people, oh, you're cavitating. You're gonna get slapped upside the head.
You're sucking air.
It's sucking air. Yeah.
Disagree with your explanation, but okay.
What's that, Ernie?
You know, to cavitate is just low, not enough pressure for whatever your prop's turning.
Okay, yeah. It's yeah. It's a massive pressure differential on one side of the propeller that causes vapor bubbles to form, right, in the
Right.
liquid.
And if you're at the surface where there's not minimal pressure and spin it fast, you're going to get cavitation versus the same speed a foot down.
Right.
There's more pressure there.
I still don't think that an RC submarine can cavitate unless you're putting like a 12S lipo to a, you know, a 6S brushless motor and spinning that thing at like 30,000 RPM. But I'm not a physicist. I could be wrong. Odds are exceptionally good. It creates, you know, like a little vortex, and it's sucking air from the surface down into the propeller.
So what are the 750 kilovolt motors that you mentioned that you like to use, and do you use reduction units on those?
I don't, and the reason that I don't, and back to Ernie's point, these are actually, they're almost 2 inches in diameter. They're fairly beefy motors, and so they have exceptionally high torque. And so in our application, because the propellers are typically, you know, like 1.75 inch, 2 inch, you know, say on average, you can simply set the endpoints on your transmitter, and it will have adequate thrust, or sorry, torque to spin that propeller, even when you artificially limit the maximum RPMs. We didn't do that with like our blue water boat, and like it'll get up and move. It'll get up and move really, really fast.
Maybe you could use a dual rate switch to have like normal cruise and then a turbo boost or something if you feel
Yeah.
like.
Yep. Exactly. I mean, ideally for our application, we want something around 350 kilovolts if you're running off of 12 volts. That's probably more realistically what we should be shooting for. But they're really hard to find.
What are the motors that you use, the 750s?
Oh, I'd have to look up if you're looking for a brand name, I'd have to look them up. I'm sure there's some Chinese brand, but we've had really, really good luck with them. They're super smooth and responsive.
Yeah.
Dave, you said 750 kilovolts. Are you saying is that the can size, 750 can size, or?
No, so the difference between a brushed motor and a brushless motor, the old brushed motor, that was kind of, those ratings were roughly can size. They weren't exactly can size, but they're roughly can size. With a brushless motor, I kind of equate it to more like the metric system. It makes more sense. And so for basically at 750 kilovolts, for example, for every volt you give that motor, it will spin 750 RPMs. So at 12 volts, it's spinning whatever the math works out to, like 9,000 RPM or whatever that is. So that's the sort of the rating. And then they've got all the other ratings as well, obviously, for torque and current draw and all of that stuff, which is a result of the efficiency and quality of the motor.
All right. Like you know, I think you know I do model warships as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I run a 755 can motor now.
Mm-hmm. That's a big motor.
Yeah, but they're direct drive and everything, and these ships run around at a real good speed at them. So,
yeah, sure. You bet.
6 volts, and they run well. I buy those for about $9 a piece.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure. Brushless motors are coming down a lot too. They're becoming much more affordable than they used to be, until you get into the crazy, like, high performance ones.
Right.
So I'm excited. I'm bringing two. I wonder if I think I do have a picture. I can share this. I'm bringing it to Subfest. I gotta pull it up here now. And I started working on it during our build party. So I think I shared with you guys my Orca a little while ago, from Jaws. So let me share this. So this is the partner to it. So this is a scale remote controlled Bruce from Jaws. And I got this idea from a $30 Amazon toy. But if we zoom in, so basically this tail is not powered. Did any of you guys ever play with those wooden snakes? Like you hold the tail and you move your hand a little bit and it kind of wiggles and it looks like super real and really creepy. That's what this tail for the shark is like. It's just actuated. Where's my next button? So underneath, this is what I got going on. There's a belly hatch, and then the pectoral fins here are hinged, so they'll tilt up and down. And then I've got these nozzles in there, and then two of these Princess Auto pumps, and they go on to the end of the nozzle here, and they jet out. And so the really cool thing about this is if you hit all left throttle, you know, the body turns to the left and the tail, you know, kind of follows the body. And then if you go to the right, the body moves and the tail follows it. And if you go left, right, left, right, left, right, it looks like the shark is swimming with the, you know, being propelled by its tail, even though it's not. And so I'm hoping that this works in this application. This is as far as I've got, and I obviously don't have any more time to work on it before Subfest, but I'll bring it anyway, just to show people. I'm kind of excited to see how it turns out. It's turning out to be something really, really cool, and I can't wait to get it in the water next to the Orca.
You gonna bring the Gato?
No, the minivan is not big enough for that, unfortunately. If we had a little more time, we would have been there. I think we have what, like one or two more things, Jason, to sort out on the Baleo, and then it'll be ready for surface trim.
Yeah, we got some power issues and a couple other smoke and whatnots, but yeah, we're 95% there.
So we've gone over this before, and it's always the newcomers to the hobby who are like, oh, I want the submarine to be operable from 4 miles away, and it needs to be able to dive 100 feet deep and shoot missiles and torpedoes and be controlled by GPS with periscopes. And so this is kind of one of those situations. I'm what I would consider to be a pretty experienced builder. This boat has 11, well, I should say it's more like 12 or 13 individual functions. Some of them are kind of autonomous and some of them are controllable. 11 channels are controllable by it.
We ran out of radio stations.
I've told you this before. For every additional feature you add to your submarine, there is an exponential increase in the probability that one of those functions will not work. For every one extra thing you add to it, there is an exponential increase, and we've got 11 things on this boat. I would say probably 50% of the time, everything was working. And it's not because we're half-assing it. It's just, you know, there's a lot going on. So I would not do it again, is what I'm saying. As cool as it is, and I'm gonna be super stoked to get it on the water and have it like lifting periscopes and spinning radar masking and lights and smoke and all of that stuff is going to look super cool, but it is not worth it. That is my learned experience. It is not worth it. If that boat would have had throttle, dive planes, ballast system, it would have been done 6 months ago. The new owner would have had it, you know, this whole time, and he would be enjoying it. So that's just my opinion. I'm passing it along to you. Take it or leave it.
Second that.
So have you guys had that boat out on the lake or anything yet, or just in the pool so far?
Just in the pool so far. Yep.
So I have a little bit of experience with that model, and I can tell you that besides all the complex problems you're talking about, it's a fantastic model in the water, of course, but those boats don't turn that sharp. And just to turn around once, give me 40 acres and I'll turn this rig around kind of thing. You cannot make one submerged turn without losing sight of it because it gets too far away. So basically what you do is submerge, make a slow pass in front of everybody and ooh and ah, and then surface again and turn around.
So I don't know if you remember, but we actually did put a stern thruster in the boat.
Oh, that's right.
And so that is on a separate channel, one of the many. And at slow speeds, it should help with that turning capacity. I think we talked about this at DiveTribe before. Stern thrusters and bow thrusters. There's a few people that are like, oh yeah, we need it. I need it for sure. It'll help my boat turn. It only helps when you're stationary or moving slowly. It's not like you're going to be at flank speed and the thing is going to like whip around and do like a bootlegger turn. It becomes, again, I love the term, exponentially less effective as your velocity through the water increases. So
do you think in the case of that model, are you likely to use the thruster while it's submerged?
I think so. I've got experience with that. I put them in like a number of models. Like even I've gone so far as to be completely submerged, stationary, hovering, and turn 360 degrees while submerged. Not that anybody would be able to see it, but
Yeah. I finally got my magnets to stick on this top. I wound up using Bondo and then put CA on them. And I put, I don't know if you can tell, I used 4 of them together and put wax paper between them and then put a Bondo on the other side of it and let it sit and harden. I hadn't had a problem with them coming off at all. But I was going to make my own periscope on it, metal, till I got my aluminum rod in the mail, courtesy of the postmaster bending it to put it in my mailbox.
That wasn't me.
Yeah.
I work for the post office. That wasn't me.
Well, I always hold my comments about postmen right now. Then I waited forever to get it, and then I got it from this other people, and I'm just going to stick to buying them from K&S. At least they ship them in tubes.
Yeah, exactly.
Bob,
I say your mailman had really been that thing.
I had a question. Since you were just talking about periscopes, is it possible to have a conversation about periscopes in one of these meetings?
We could talk about it now. We got 15 minutes.
I'm curious as, okay, you show the different types of automated periscopes, etc. As you guys run your boats and doing it, what do you think is the proper height for a periscope over the boat in its scale for you to be able to run the boat with your new electronics?
When you say new electronics, are you talking about the 2.4 gigahertz control system?
Yes. because you definitely want to increase the periscope height so that you get a little more action. But at what point does it become overkill putting an extra long periscope in or not? In other words, in layman's terms, how do you guys determine the heights of periscopes when you're using them for the antenna?
Does anybody want to chime in before I do?
Well, here's one thing I can think of. Why not use one of the communication antennas, which are taller than the periscopes are?
Periscopes are usually
It depends
measured
on
from
the
the bottom of the
submarine.
boat. And like periscope depth would be 62 feet measured from the bottom of a boat.
It depends upon the boat.
Well, right, it depends on the boat, but you know, just
The Anburn 3 navigation, that's that mast.
Yeah,
It's
688,
the tallest
68.
mast on an FBF. I use that.
So you guys are saying use 68 scale feet from the bottom of the boat?
So Michael, just for background, Michael's going to be building the ARC model type 7. I assume that's specifically what you're concerned about at this point, right, Michael?
Yeah, I'm doing all my preliminary work, Bob.
Yep.
And
So
just
it's the same sort of thing, you know, that like the periscope's extended from the bottom of the boat up to, you know, the top of the conning tower. And so for scale appearance, you don't want to exceed that measurement from the keel to the top of that conning tower, you know, outlet or whatever you want to call it. If you were to go that way, I would say you'd be perfectly fine. And that would probably, I'm going to say that would probably give you 7 or 8 inches for the ARC model kit, which is plenty, Ed can attest to this, and Jason can attest to this. When you get your boat properly dialed in and you're at periscope depth, you can literally set your throttle, adjust your dive planes, set your radio down on the ground, and the boat will just continue with, you know, 2 inches of periscope above the water, all on its own. That's the ultimate goal, is to have it dialed in to that point. And so it's not going to be a battle. You're not going to be constantly, you know, fighting with the periscope going up and down and all of that stuff. You've chosen a subject that's large enough that you've got a big, you know, safety margin of operational range to go. And the cool thing about all submarines is, like, when you hit a turn, it's going to tend to climb and not dive. So worst case scenario, you're going to get that antenna up higher as you turn, until you learn to give down planes in a turn.
okay. I was just curious because I've seen so many heights of periscope from something that looks absolutely ridiculous to what looks like a tiny little thing about an inch off the sub.
Yeah.
And if there was, now I know there is a measurement for scale that your periscope should be up.
At the end of the day, Michael, what I would do is you know, you're going to have a guide tube, and then the periscope itself, or mast, or whatever it is, right? Set it in place, take a step back, look at it. Does it feel right to you? Adjust it up or down. Does that feel right to you? At the end of the day, if it feels right to you, who cares what everybody else thinks?
Do you guys adjust your periscopes during
No,
operating?
I mean, no, not typically. I'll put a stop on so when you put the extension in place, it just drops in and then it stops.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
You could get fancy, like what Steve Hodges did, and he put the coaxial extension on a retractable periscope, so it would actually extend and retract into the conning tower. Now, that was an Oberon, that was 32nd scale, so he had a lot more room to work with. But if you're after an engineering challenge, that would be what you'd want to go for.
I am trying to stick to your KISS principle, Bob.
There you go. You're a smart man.
Hey, Bob, getting back to your steering, like on your sub you're talking about there, on my Jimmy Carter, I had an extra set of rudders. I went and cut them and it made them about 25% bigger in length and height to help me give that Jimmy Carter a better turn,
Yep.
both lower and upper.
It's 100% all about the boat that you have. And again, going back to the Type 7, I actually find it has exceptional control. You know, both the dive planes and the rudders are directly behind the propellers, and so immediately when you kick the throttle on, you've got pitch control and you've got your yaw control. Immediate. Whereas like a modern nuclear submarine needs to get speed, right? It needs to be moving through the water before those control surfaces are engaging it more. So what we've actually seen, and Ed recommended I do this. I picked up a 48 scale alpha. You know, they've got what's the proper term? The Russians like doing it where they have the stabilizer and then the separate rudder that moves inside it. Whereas like American boats and you know, a lot of European boats have, I think they're called flying rudders, where the entire rudder is one piece and it all moves together. He recommended that I just make the stabilizer part of the rudders. And so there's ways that you can cheat and still have it look scale, but it'll obviously greatly, in this particular case, it would double the surface area that you've got to control the boat. And then of course the other thing that you can do if that really bothers you, you can make a removable clear plastic extension for the back of the rudder too. We were speaking about damage. So have you guys followed my YouTube channel? You seen that little 212 from Maximus Model Bow? Have you seen that video? The gentleman that sent it in and it got all smashed and everything. So we shipped it to him, and it came back to us. This is the inner mounting ring for the cylinder. This is all cracked here, 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 and here. It was all broken apart. This is how it got back. So we shipped it to him fully functional in a hard-sided, custom-made carry case with custom cut foam inserts. And this was a 3-day delivery by UPS, and this is how it showed up to him. Broken in, I don't even know how this is physically possible, because the boat was, you know, it was protected on all 4 sides with foam. I would have wagered like $1,000 that I could have thrown it off the roof of our building and it wouldn't have broke. So now we're fixing it. All of it needed to be repaired. And
what did the case look like?
Do I have a picture? Hold on a second. Let me see. I'm sure I do have a picture somewhere.
Case was perfectly intact, not one dent on it.
Yep, not a scratch, not a dent, not a nick, not a ding, nothing.
One time I had UPS ship me some worship halls to me, and they said when I got here, because the reason I got broken because it was improperly packaged.
Improper packaging, yeah, exactly.
Right. Well, the guy who's been packaging ships for models for 30-some freaking years knows how to pack them. When the drawings inside the hulls get crushed and folded, that tells you right there they dropped something that was majorly heavy onto the case, onto the shipping package.
Yeah, I don't know.
He shipped it back to us in the original box, and not one. I mean, you could see some shipping damage that was thrown around a little bit, but nothing like any of those tire tracks. Nothing.
Wow.
It was. Not one scratch, one dent, not one anything on the case itself.
They must have slammed it pretty hard on the ground flat then.
But you know that, like we talked about this, the force would be spread across the entire side of the boat, right? Like I don't know. Yeah, I was telling Jason, it's like, well, this is good because I didn't have enough to do 2 days before Subfest, rather than fix a boat that we already spent weeks repairing from the initial shipping damage.
On a brand new boat. on a brand new boat.
On a brand this thing is looking pretty rough. It's literally brand new. It's been in the water like once. And it looks like it's been through a war, this poor thing.
I would not want to try shipping one of the ship models I build, the warship that I build. I think I'd be okay. You want it shipped? Meet me at this location. I'm driving. You're paying me this much.
So we ship boats all the time. You've seen that big Vesico Type 2 model that we did, that really cool red one with the black and white camo on the top of it. So the way that we ship it, we ship it in those shipping boxes that I sell, the 3/4 inch birch plywood shipping boxes. And then I use the expanding foam inserts, the packs that you squeeze and it expands. Like each one of those is probably $2 or $3. And I think we probably used 30 in that box to secure it, but it got there. Not one thing was broken. Jason, not one thing was broken on that boat.
Thank God.
Yep.
$200 in shipping packs.
That's the way it goes. Better than $50 in peanuts, plus return shipping, plus repairs, plus re-return shipping, plus.
Yeah, the peanuts would have moved around.
Yep. Well, we're coming up on an hour. I'm batching it right now, so I don't have anybody here. I don't necessarily need to go, but does anybody else have anything else they want to bring up? Projects they're working on or questions they have?
Hey, Dave, what's the status of the sturgeon? The sturgeon
Who?
kit?
Oh, me, Bob?
Yeah.
So I've got all I need is time. I've got all the molds, everything is here. I've got the David actually even did up the first layup and cast parts for me. So I need, basically, before I can start offering it, I need to do a full build up front to back, because people, my idea, this is the perfect size boat as a starter kit for somebody getting into the hobby. It's a nice length, it's a nice diameter, it works really, really well, it looks beautiful. But if I'm going to do that, they need to have instructions front to back on how to put it together. So
Right.
I've just got to find the time.
I got a little time to wait. I got a lot of projects myself going, but especially want to get another haul in that from you, so I can get the Parchi model going.
Yeah, sure.
Bob, what scale is the sturgeon going to be in?
96 scale.
Hey, did you happen to look at the weather forecast for Coheta?
I didn't. Casey sent it to me, but that was from a little while ago. What are we looking at?
Well, it's thunderstorms and rain and all kinds of hell until Tuesday. And then from Tuesday through Saturday, it's 81 to 86 degrees and perfectly sunny.
It was not a pretty day down here in Florida today with the rain today, because I had to go 1.5 miles out of my direction to get back to my office.
Wow.
Yeah,
my wife's down in Naples right now. She said it was insane thunderstorms this afternoon.
Yeah.
From my boating experience, you don't know what the weather's going to be like until the day before it. You're whatever.
18 hours. That's right, Ken. 18 hours.
Yep.
T-minus 18 hours. In the northern hemisphere, in the U.S., you have a 66 2/3 chance of having a sunny day. That's all I know by.
We try and plan our boating weekends, almost in a week in advance. And I watch the weather on Monday, and by time Saturday and Sunday comes, it's not what they said it was on Monday. So, like Ed said, 18 hours.
Yeah,
That's why I gave
I'm
up
with you
sailing.
with flight planning for flying. It's the exact same thing.
Yeah.
Well, that's like one time we did a fun run up there in Rocky Mount, North Carolina, but that hurricane came up that way. We got one good day run. The next day we couldn't run. The next day, guy ran his boat out in the parking lot because it flooded.
The best weather forecaster is a rock on a string. Hang it outside. If it's wet, it's raining. If it's moving, it's windy. If it's gone, it's a hurricane.
What about the old bear fat in the jar?
Yeah.
A while ago, we went on a scuba diving trip from here in New Jersey. The local dive shop organized it, and there was probably about a dozen of us, and we went to Florida to do scuba diving in Big Key. We were going to do 2 or 3 dives a day for 3 days straight, and an Arctic blast came down and it was freezing. We had to ask for a heater for our room because they didn't have heat down there. And this is in the Florida Keys. And we only ended up doing, out of the 9 or so dives, we only did like 2 or 3. Because it was too cold and windy.
It's only too cold if you're from south, but if you're from north, it should be okay.
Bob, when do you think you might start doing some castings for like fittings for like the skipjack and all that stuff?
Type 3. Type 23, sorry.
Yeah, type 23.
We've got all the. We just need time. You know, honestly, I think I need to look at hiring somebody else. I don't know if you looked at my last newsletter. I've got like 12 projects queued up right now, plus all of the production that's going on. The cylinders are a huge thing for us too. We've got, I think, 8 cylinder orders that we're working on right now. And it's not just building the cylinders, it's designing, engineering, producing, testing. You know, it's a lot. And so, you know, when it comes to making a choice between being able to supply the hobby with cylinders or supply the hobby with fitting kits, I elect to spend my time designing the cylinders. That's, you know, if I would, we should get like everybody together. We'll have a dive tribe at my place, and we'll have like a work weekend, and we'll get 4 or 5 people, and we'll just knock these out. We'll get like 3 or 4 fitting kits all set up and ready to go. We could do it.
Want a cylinder? Come build it.
Don't they do that with kit cars, don't they? Where you can like rent a garage and then you like build your kit car at this facility and people help you.
It's kind of like that Build-A-Bear workshop. So you just show up and get the little free parts.
You want it? Come build it.
That's right.
Yeah.
Stuff's all here.
I don't mean to poo-poo that whole fitting kit thing. I know a lot of people really want them, but it's just a matter of time. You know, as it stands right now, like I'm working from 4 o'clock in the morning till 3 o'clock in the afternoon every day, plus weekends answering emails and doing CAD work and sourcing vendors, and I've made the hard cutoff at 3 p.m. That's family time from 3 o'clock on. So
Smart man.
What do you, I know you found somebody to cast your hulls up here closer to Dallas. Hopefully that's still working out for you. But is there anybody that can do the resin, the pot castings for the fittings kits? I mean, just farm it out?
yes and no. I mean, it would be training time. And honestly, it's just, by the time we went out and we went to them and trained them on doing it, we could have just done it ourselves, if that makes any sense. And it's not that just we're casting parts. You know, there's a lot of there's metal casting involved with a lot of the kits, which nobody does that I've been able to find. And then on top of that, it's a hybrid kit, and so you've got cast parts with embedded brass or stainless steel inside, okay. and so there's, you know, it's not like you're just pouring resin and dumping parts into a bin. There's pre-set up and special techniques and all that fun stuff. It's there. Again, I know the demand is there. I absolutely do.
But one thing on the fittings kit is, of course, you got the resin parts, then you have the metal parts like the propeller. I know that some of the, the propellers that you have on the website, you have a brass propeller available for the skipjack. I don't think you can use, like on the Type Bronco 23, you can use the plastic propeller that comes with it. But maybe in the meantime, is it possible to put a list of the different models and where to source things like the bearings for the shaft, and maybe how to get a small section of shaft? Because I think looking at the Bronco, I could probably build it without the fittings kit, but then I'd have to source the, those items, the bearings, and get a little section of shaft, which I think is just 3/16 stainless steel, so I mean, maybe if everybody had that where they can source those parts on their own, they can go ahead and build the model. I had lost in my car, I lost one of the sail dive planes in my car and didn't find it until 2 or 3 months later. But I had taken the plastic ones that came in the Mobius kit and filled that with resin and made my own. So I have 2 pairs now because I found the missing sail, the dive plane, So those things can be done, It's just a matter of maybe sourcing the individual parts like bearings and all that.
Absolutely. If anybody is at the point where having a fittings kit is stymieing their efforts to move forward with a build, then I would urge them to get with me, and I have no problem in allocating a little bit of time talking them through. Like for example, Jason's Gato kit that he put together, we used all the stock plastic parts. All of the stock rudders, the stock dive planes, the stock propellers, everything was just right out of the kit. It just takes a little bit of time to modify them for RC use. And to your point, to set up a drivetrain, absolutely, I'll hook you up with 8-inch stainless steel drive shafts and oil light bearings and linkage horns and like anything you need. That's all. We've got all of that stuff sitting on the shelf. Okay. I just can't put I suppose I could, but again, it's more time, like a quasi fittings kit together for every model that's out there. You know what I mean? Like a
McMaster car.
I think last I looked, there were probably half a dozen people that wanted the Type 20, the 23 fittings kit. But like we just said, you can build it without all those parts, the stock parts.
Yeah, and I don't know, maybe Jason, we just need to bite the bullet and be like, okay, Tuesday, that's all we're going to work on. We're just going to get it set up and knock it out.
Well, maybe instead of metal pouring props, can you not find somebody to 3D print these things?
We can. Now the challenge with the 3D printed parts, and trust me, we've done a lot of 3D printing of parts, is strength and durability. I can farm out the printing to a professional company that has like a $250,000 SLS printer that'll sinter plastic, like nylon plastic, that you could like hit with a hammer and it would be fine. But in terms of like in-house printing, I've yet to find like a resin or even filament product that would offer the strength needed for these really thin parts. Now that like the Type 23 and the skipjack and all of that, there's a product from Robosch that is going to be close enough to get you going. Absolutely, and I've got them all listed out, and we've got them listed on our website. You can buy them. It's the detail parts, like all of the horns and the yokes and the the zincs and the cleats and the bollards and all of these little things that go into these fitting kits that need to be cast in metal, because they're just not suited for resin casting.
For us people who are going to hotels, is it okay that we leave our subs and stuff there overnight at the facility there?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's going to be I think at this point, at least half a dozen people who are camping out at the actual venue. So there's a covered area with picnic tables, and it's behind a locked chain link fence. So, I mean, if somebody really wanted to get in, they could get in. But I mean, there's people there, there's a fence, it's rural Georgia, you know, it's not like we're downtown Atlanta, you know.
I'm telling you right now, David, I'm gonna be there overnight. Me, my son, daughter, we have several other people. Apparently, the help there, I forgot his name, that guy with that.
Alan?
Yeah, he runs a bonfire and has beers all night. I'll guarantee your boat will be fine. I can almost guarantee, you know, like I said,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, you get stealth ninjas in there. I don't know what to say, but I'm not gonna guarantee I won't run it while you're not there. Run your boat.
Hey,
But,
it's
yeah.
not that I'm afraid someone will steal it. It's just that it's difficult. I'm driving my Volkswagen Jetta, and it's difficult to put in a 7.5 foot sub in there and then take it out.
When my boat, right, on Thursday, when my boats get out of my truck and go onto the table, they're there till Sunday morning. I'm not
Yep.
putting them back in my truck till Sunday morning.
Same thing with mine. Yep.
Once I grab a spot, I'm in.
Just don't bring any boats that look like catalytic converters, and they should be fine.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
I mean, if you wanted to, from a safety perspective, it probably wouldn't hurt anything either. Bring a tarp and just drape a tarp over the table, and not only for safety, but it gets damp there, and like lots of condensation. So if you have like papers and manuals, like whatever out, it gets damp out there, like your chargers and that kind of stuff.
Bob, okay, but I was gonna say, let me get this right. You want us to cover our RC submarines with tarps because of moisture.
Well, you want to get them
I want to
wet.
make sure I get that right. No, I understand. Electronics and stuff, you should throw in your car or something overnight.
Yeah, exactly. It's like those people with the big 4x4s, Ed, that never take them off road.
Yeah. I don't want to scratch my toy.
With upwards of 23 people, I guess, what do you think? There any problem with getting tables for everybody?
There's 2 covered picnic table areas. I'd say each area probably has, what, Ed, like 15 tables or something like that. There's lots and lots of room. We got bursting at the seams because we were all trying to kind of stay under the one, but we can easily spread out to the other, and then there'll be gobs of room, no problem.
Well,
Right,
David Merriman takes up one hole.
3 tables to himself. Yeah, exactly. The thing that I find really cool about this, with 23-ish skippers, I'm going to say the average, if we average it out, I'm going to say there's probably going to be 2 or 3 boats per person. But this is going to be a pretty big fleet of submarines at this event. I'm really looking forward to it.
I would be more worried about running, not banging into each other in the water. And those poor souls that are still a slave to 75 megahertz. Trying to get a late channel.
Yep.
It's just my humble opinion.
This is true.
So clockwise in the pond?
It's the only rule is be courteous, and if you're don't be stupid. And then I did stipulate if there are surfaced craft there, because quite a few people did reach out asking if they could bring them, that if it is a little crowded, and that they remain on the concession side of the pool.
I was just thinking about that amazing video you have of that marlin threading the needle between 2 other boats. I don't know if that was Ken, I don't know if that was Ken or not, but it was definitely a skip marlin. It was great.
I'm looking forward to the figure 8 race.
I I'll tell you what, for the surface craft, the targets, I'll bring one of those plastic kiddie pools they can use. How about that? Or maybe an inflatable.
I don't know if, well, my name is Ken and I'm a 75 megahertz user. Okay.
We'll pray for you.
Thank you. I don't know if I just noticed this. Somebody had this up at Groton. It does a scan for any 75 megahertz channels that are open, and it has a range of 300 meters and 1,000 with an antenna. It's 1,000 meters, and it just lights up when it detects a signal. So
Nice.
I think it was $15 on Amazon. So, and it 75 megahertz, it's old stuff now. So but this is a handy thing to have, which I'm going to bring.
That's awesome. That is awesome.
Have you tried it?
I got one too, and I'm bringing it.
There you go.
That's cool, guys. That's very cool. I got a question about how it works. Does it light up when a frequency is on, or does it light up when does it stay dark? Does it show you what's available? Or
No, it's up what you're using.
Understand what I'm saying?
Here,
I'm sorry.
I don't know if you can see the LED. I have a radio on, and it lit up.
There it is.
So it detected that, and it'll stay on and just continuously scan.
How many
That's a
radios do you
good-
have on?
I have one, so I don't know. Oh, there it goes. It
Oh,
goes
there
off.
you go.
That's the one. So it picked up some frequency, but that's 77, which is what my radio is.
That's awesome. Yeah, wow. I've run surface regattas with 30 boats in them in the old days, all on 75 megahertz. And it was a just pure hell. The smug guys were the hams on 50 megahertz because they had private channels. So
Ernie, do you use yours a lot?
The scanner,
Yeah.
I usually run by myself, so there's no reason.
Okay.
So
okay.
I didn't know this, but this in the manual, it said there was an antenna, which I bought separately on Amazon. And, it just plugs right in and it gives you the up to 1,000 meters, it says.
Wow.
And also it works good to tell if your radio's working.
Yeah.
That's cool. I wonder if there's a way to use it to find if somebody's being bad at using a frequency he's not supposed to be using. Like
Right. For
I have the frequency flag.
Just compare it to the frequency board, right?
absolutely.
Right.
right.
So I'm having glitching problems. I turn off my transmitter and see if it's still lit.
There you go.
Yep. The best thing about 75 megahertz was that nice big long antenna, so you could reach out and get your boat and drag it in.
This is true.
If anybody
This
wants
is
to
true.
know, it's made by a company called Duratrax, Duratrax.
How many guys ever run 72 megahertz for their boats?
We've used it, sure.
That wouldn't be right.
Works
I did pick up-
perfectly fine.
I did pick up one radio with 72 megahertz for like $85 for the receiver, and it works.
Yeah, it'll work probably marginally better than 75 megahertz. Technically, it's illegal, and technically, I cannot condone the use at Subfest.
So I found out an interesting thing when I had a bunch of these sent off and converted to 70 from 72 to 75. You don't have to send the radio in on these type a T9 CAP. You just need to send these in, the little plugins.
Yeah, exactly.
I didn't know. I mean, I thought they had to do some magic in the radio. I know nothing about it. And he told me you didn't have to. And so you can take a 72 radio, pull that out and plug this in, you're good to go.
There you go.
Hey, listen, I think we had a discussion of this lately, Bob. But has anyone ever verified from the FCC that the 72 versus 75 is indeed an FCC issue, or is it a hobby industry issue? Because when I look at a radio frequency chart, I see both of them for land mobile use. I do not see a distinction between model airplanes and land surface use. I still bet the dollars to donuts. If we were to get a valid answer from the FCC, they would say, I don't care, it's a hobby industry issue.
I don't think you get anybody from the FCC to answer that.
Right, right. But I wish we could. I bet you, because when you look at a frequency chart, that's what it says. It doesn't say, you know, plane, you know, toy airplanes or toy boats. It says civilian land use frequencies. So I'm thinking it was back in the day that it's our industry, the hobby industry, that said 72 for air and 75, and the FCC wouldn't give a crap. Has anybody ever been arrested by the FCC or ticketed?
I'd be hard pressed to think recently, for sure. I mean, anybody worth their
Yeah, they're
marbles
throwing around the thing
is on
illegal,
2.4
but
for airplanes now.
right. We're throwing around the term illegal for use. What do you mean illegal? Or do you mean it's just you don't want to upset some aircraft guy? You understand what I'm saying? Is it a hobby? Is it a hobby industry standard? Or is it an actual legal where you can be persecuted from a ticket to some $10,000 fine?
It'll probably be
That's
some
what
of
I'm
the
saying.
88,000 IRS agents coming after you.
Yeah, you got it. But I'm telling you, if we can have that answer, I think the whole delta between the two is just going to fade away. Nobody cares because they're all on 2.4. It was established because you didn't want aircraft getting flown into people's heads.
But I'm going to tell you, there's a big airfield up here for RC airplanes about 10 miles from me. They still use 72 there.
I'm sure a few of them do.
And they teach the kids and stuff on how to use them. And so it's still used by the airplane people.
By the air. Well, then that answers the question. Even if it's not technically going to throw you in jail, it's still in use, and you don't want to step on your neighbor like that.
Right. Yep.
Yeah, same here at the local airfield. I know 3 people who still use 72, and they said there was something about range that they still use it, that they can really, really go far, but they're probably using illegal radios anyway that are pumping out too much power. So
Probably. I have a hard time believing 72 megahertz radio can compete with like the 2.4s. Well, those 2.4s, that little $400 camera drone that I got, it's rated to like 5 miles or something stupid like that. Like, it's insane.
I think the 72 and 75 megahertz do actually have a longer range than 2.4.
Really?
Yeah, depending on the output of the transmitter, but in general, you're talking your typical hobby grade stuff. 72 megahertz, 2.4 is pretty much line of sight only. If you put it behind your back between you and your airplane or whatever you're controlling, it might not work.
Wow, didn't know that.
In the same way that it doesn't penetrate water.
Right.
It doesn't penetrate walls or other things either.
All right.
Yeah, Ed, I'm reading on the FCC website, and it just talks about the separation between the surface channels and the aircraft channels. Doesn't say anything about penalty. It just says that they're allocated that way, probably simply so they aren't hitting each other and you don't build a flying field near a lake. Although the float plane guys are the ones I hear getting hit a lot because they'll run around water where there may be boats.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I don't know that there's any penalty listed here. It just lists the 50 channels on for model aircraft and 30 channels for model surface craft.
Keep in mind that 75 megahertz wasn't originally, I mean, I know it's what people used for boats, but that wasn't the main customer for it. It was cars. It was RC cars.
Yeah.
Well, I for one need to think about packing it in. I still got to pack for tomorrow, so can do a final call for questions or comments, and then we can pack it in. All good?
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, thanks for coming in and on short notice like that. Like I was telling Ken earlier, it was kind of this or nothing, because I'm going to be in Florida this weekend, and then the weekend after that is Subfest. So we're going to be a little bit of a stint before we get back together again.
So bring your rain jacket with you.
I don't melt.
That's how it works. You bring your rain jacket, you don't need it, right?
Well, they're saying up to 8 inches all the way through Sunday of rain.
Oh, in Florida, yeah. That's just Florida, though. I'm used to it. It's fine.
Yeah, but we had nothing for the last 6 days, though.
Okay. Well, I'm going to sign off. It was good to see everybody. We will catch you soon. Hopefully, we'll see some of you guys at Subfest, and if not, we'll see you next DiveTribe.
Thanks, Bob.
All right, you bet. Have a great night.
Bye, guys.